heart, you actually won the fight.
Yeah, hell yeah, I believe I won the fight. Shit, that's just like when you believe that you want cheese on that burger. You know what you looking for. Hell yeah, I feel like I won, Dan. Come on now. Now we got a love-hate relationship. Don't let me do this. I got the mic. I'll fuck you up here now.
I've got the mic too, my friend.
Yeah, I'll fuck you up here now. But I really did believe
It was like I won that fight.
I was like, he using his imagination right there. That's dope. He living here. He living in here. That's good. That's good. He living here.
Professionally, we're not going to have an interview. You make the decision. What did you think about the fight?
I beat him. Everybody out there know I beat him. Everybody out there know I beat him. I controlled the fight. He was missing. I hit him clean more times. I beat him.
You averaged 8 punches. Less than 8 punches was the most punches that you had in the round, and it seemed as though you couldn't get close enough.
It already sounded like it was against me. So I already ain't got a fair shake talking to you. But let me talk something. Let me let y'all know. I want to thank the whole hood who came out here. I love y'all. I did this for the hood. Y'all know I beat that boy. Y'all know I beat that boy. What they trying to do is they trying to get that money again with Pacquiao and Floyd. But it's cool. I ain't worried about it. I'm still that nigga, man. I'm on top. Cincinnati, stand up. West Side, 2-5.
You're 3-3-1 in your last 7 fights. What will you do next?
Hey, I'm 3-3-1 in my last 7, but I'll be 7-0 against you.
I'm sure most of you have seen these video clips and heard these sound bites already, but I'm gonna tell you something. This video and this segment of the video, it ain't even about that. Like,
fuck out of here.
Some shit is just too ridiculous to argue. You understand? That was not a hard fight to score at all. I'm not gonna sit here and split hairs over what happened in each round like this. I mean, seriously. At some point, the argument is just too stupid to argue. This was a fight that Adrian Broner clearly lost. And no matter how many reporters he decides to snap at before a fight, like he did with Al Bernstein, or after a fight, like he did with Jim Gray and Dan Rafael.
It's not gonna change.
Regardless of how many reporters he decides to snap at, that's not gonna change anything. That was a fairly simple fight to score. The same problems that Adrian Broner always has, he had them on Saturday night. It's just a simple situation. The only interesting part of this soundbite, quite honestly, that caught my attention is Adrian Broner is alleging that clandestine moves are being made to orchestrate a Mayweather versus Pacquiao rematch. We know that Manny wants that rematch and he addressed the subject. We know that. But in the case of Floyd Mayweather, Leonard Ellerbe is saying the opposite. Leonard Ellerbe is saying, look, the guy's retired and he's really not interested. That it's not even about money anymore so much as a lack of desire, a lack of passion. That Mayweather, he's done. And I'm going to reiterate some things that you may or may not have heard in some of my older videos regarding the prospect of a Mayweather versus Pacquiao rematch. And I'm going to keep this short and simple because I've said this many, many times already. For those new subscribers who may not have heard it, this bud's for you. When it comes to that fight, there's no need for a rematch. I'm sorry. When you win that decisively, there's actually no cause for a rematch. Everybody's begging for Mayweather to come out of retirement, even the people that used to complain about him the most. So you would think that these people would be overjoyed that he's no longer participating in the elite level, at the elite level,
in the sport of boxing,
in prize fighting. You would have thought they was happy he was gone. Yet there's this outcry for him to give Manny a rematch. And I'm thinking about it like, for what? The first fight was a pretty decisive victory. There really wasn't left. There wasn't much left to the imagination in that fight. That fight yielded none of the characteristics of a Manny Pacquiao fight. The entire aesthetic of the fight was that of a Floyd Mayweather fight, and in that way, you can easily see who the ring general was. Whatever needed to be settled got settled a long time ago, and constantly rehatching the prospect of a rematch is just you beating a dead horse. You know, a guy like Floyd Mayweather retires with a record like the record that he's got, and everybody's gonna act like he's got unfinished business. They did the same thing to Andre Ward when he decided to retire, and Andre Ward made his reasons for retiring crystal clear. Just doesn't want it anymore. Oh, granted, every so often you're gonna get an itch that you want to scratch as a fighter, but it's a passing thought. I remember a lot of guys saying when Andre Ward retired that, oh, well, he retired because of so-and-so, because so-and-so was either going to become his mandatory, just a lot of bullshit. And I'm thinking, that entire process, it never stops. So by your logic, no one should ever retire at all because there's always another guy in line. And this is this is kind of a very infantile mentality. When you got a record like Andre Ward's, when you've got a record like Floyd Mayweather's, and you retire on top, which is very hard to do. It's very hard to do that in the sport of professional boxing. When you retire on a high and you've had things your way, there's always going to be a subsect of guys that really can't live with that, and they will try to rationalize and orchestrate any myriad of reasons for you to have to come back, that you got to give so-and-so a rematch, even in a situation where the first fight was decisive enough that you don't need a rematch. It is over, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think Floyd Mayweather owes anyone anything anymore. I think something very similar is true in the case of Manny Pacquiao. It's a wonder that he's still doing what he's doing, that he's still around, doing as well as he's doing for as long as he's been doing it. It's a wonder. But he's yet another guy that he don't got nothing to prove. At this point, his legacy is facilitated. Whatever he's doing now is extra credit. Whatever he's doing now is just because he's bored. You understand? There's nothing left to prove in the case of Floyd Mayweather the same way there's nothing left to prove in the case of Manny Pacquiao. And that applies to a lot of fighters. A seasoned fight fan will know this because they've seen it many times before. That there's always going to be a set of guys that are unhappy with the way things worked out. Well, guess what? You can't fucking please everybody. At the end of the day, the super fight that everybody was clamoring for actually happened. And the only guys that are left wanting a rematch, the only guys that are left complaining, are the ones who got it wrong. I caught the outcome of that fight years before the fight took place. I caught the outcome of that fight. The fight actually got made, they did what they had to do, and it was no surprise to me because I reiterate, that's what I was expecting to see. So you'll forgive me if I'm not sitting around in 2019 saying, where's my Mayweather-Pacquiao rematch? I think they settled what they had to settle, and Mayweather delivered what he said he would deliver. I'm not telling you guys that he's a perfect person or that he's the nicest guy, or I'm not doing the outside of the ring shit. I'm talking about what took place in the ring. The fight happened and it is over, ladies and gentlemen. Stop trying to rewrite history. Adrian Broner might have deferred to that as a scapegoat as to why, he lost. He's trying to say, oh no, I didn't lose the fight. These guys are just working against me behind the scenes. He's using that as a talking point, and that's why that has resurfaced. But in the case of Adrian Broner, you fucking lost, bro. Couldn't be easier to see. Couldn't have been an easier fight to score. And in the case of people wanting that rematch and asking for it, no thank you. I've seen it already. I knew what kind of fight it was going to look like. I knew how it was going to work out. I've seen it. I'm done with it. I've made peace with it. It is time to move on. For Manny Pacquiao, there are any variety of exciting options out there today that he can use to further advance his legacy. His legacy is already facilitated. He's a shoo-in to go down as one of the greatest guys that ever put on a pair of boxing gloves. That is done. But if he wants to stick around and he wants to be a part of big situations, there are other guys out there besides Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather don't want to box anymore, and if you can't, I don't know how people haven't deduced that yet. He's not boxing with boxers anymore, right? Shouldn't that be the indication that he is done when it comes to the sport of elite level prize fighting? Whatever he does now is recreational. It's just to keep busy, just makes pocket change because, well, he does get a lot of pocket change. But for Manny, there are other interesting options out there. I mean, that's why he said he signed with the PBC, right? Because of the fighters that they got. Well, if Manny insists on competing at the elite level at this age, then there are any variety of options that are there for him. There is an Errol Spence fight, or the winner of the Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia fight. I've touched on that in the past, that could you imagine if Mikey Garcia by some chance were to unseat and upset Errol Spence, how big a fight Mikey could have with Manny Pacquiao? That fight could be huge. Keith Thurman's on that side, Sean Porter's on that side, Danny Garcia's on that side. There are guys on that side of the street for you to keep busy with that would make for not just good fights, but events. So if Manny wants to participate in events, that opportunity is still there. I'm not completely sure that Manny wants to have events with those particular fighters. They don't yield the same fan response that Adrian Broner and his big fucking mouth that's full of shit. They're not as widely known or popular amongst the casuals as he is. He's known, but for all the wrong reasons, but still, he is a known guy. So I'm not sure that those events would be as big as that one, but one way or another, he's got options outside of Floyd Mayweather. Can we put the Maypac shit to rest? That's all I'm saying. Now, another bit of news that may be flying a bit low below the radar in light of this weekend's fights, which are captivating headlines. This bit of news is flying a bit low below the radar, and I think it deserves more attention. And it involves former WBO light heavyweight champion Sergey Kovalev, who's all entangled, apparently, in an assault on a woman.
Back in June at Big Bear Lake.
That Sergey Kovalev was arrested on June 9th in connection with an incident that occurred at Big Bear Lake where he was allegedly accused of punching a woman in the face. That Sergey Kovalev was released on $50,000 bail according to the court records. He was charged with assault likely to cause bodily injury and on August 27th pleaded not guilty according to court records. Kathy Duva, who helps to handle the career of Sergey Kovalev, she had this to say. She said, the woman deserves to be heard. Every woman deserves to be heard. But Sergey Kovalev does have the right to clear his name in court. And this is a very curious development because this allegedly happened 7 months ago. At the time of the arrest in June, well, that's 7 months ago. If this shit happened 7 months ago, why are we just now hearing about it?
Took so long.
When it's Adrian Broner doing some dumb shit somewhere, we hear about that news as it's happening. It doesn't take 7 months to break for some dumb shit that Adrian Broner does to pop up in the news.
It happens fast.
Now, I will admit that Adrian Broner has a much higher profile than a guy like Sergey Kovalev, but even in the case of someone more obscure, like Marcus Brown.
Just beat Jack.
A very similar incident involving Marcus Brown, which took place on March 30th. Some fiasco involving him, his girlfriend, and a door that he slammed into or whatever. A very similar situation involving Marcus Brown had taken place back in March on the 30th, yet that news only took, 6 or 7 days to break? This news took 6 or 7 months. So why are we just now hearing about this? Was this entire fiasco involving Sergey Kovalev, was this deliberately kept out of the news? And were the particulars surrounding this incident, were those also kept out of the news? Because a lot of this stuff is in the air. We're just now hearing about it. We don't know anything about this woman that's accusing Sergey of punching her in the face. I mean, with all the information that isn't available,
You don't know much.
in regards to this entire incident, with all the information that we don't have, you can't argue for his innocence or guilt because we simply don't know a lot about what's going on. And this allegedly happened 7 months ago. Ample time for the information to be collected. And yet, in the case of Marcus Brown, all the particulars, all of it, was reported very promptly. The news broke only days after the incident, and it was reported that it was his girlfriend, and where it took place, and what happened, and a couple of things regarding Marcus Brown and some priors. So I'm noticing a difference in how prompt the news is delivered and what particulars are reported at the time the news is delivered. Because it's like, come on, this took place 7 months ago. Why are we just now hearing about it? I mean, I think that's a pretty big detail. Don't you think that this happened 7 months ago, but we're only hearing about it now? Why is that? I mean, use your better judgment. Use your common sense. If a periodical as widely known as the Daily News, the New York Daily News, found time within their day to report on someone as obscure, as not well known as Marcus Brown, because Marcus Brown don't got the profile of an Adrian Broner, he don't got the profile of a Floyd Mayweather, yet they found time within their day to report on a situation involving him. If they found time to do that, how is it that we're sitting here 7 months later after this situation with Sergey took place and we don't even know much about what's going on? You have to admit to yourself that there seems to be a difference in how this news is being reported and what details are being made available regarding this situation. Is it possible that this stuff is deliberately being not only delivered late, but certain particulars are being omitted because there's a lot about this motherfucking case that we don't know? Now, in regards to this news that we're just now hearing about, Sergey Kovalev addressed the recent reports in his Instagram account with this statement. He says, "Dear friends, boxing fans, and everyone who is up to date with the latest high-profile news regarding me, I would like to ask all of you not to make hasty conclusions on a situation in which I am accused and put into the light in a not entirely biased manner. After all, you do not know the details of what happened. For me, this most of all seems to be a performance in which I play the main role by not will. Doesn't it seem strange to you that the incident happened in June of last year and they announced it on the eve of my rematch against Alvarez? Essentially, what Sergey Kovalev is trying to say, or at least what it sounds like, is that people shouldn't jump to conclusions regarding this situation because most of the particulars aren't even available.
That's true.
Even though that in and of itself begs certain questions. And that this news may be being released at this point to slander him, to affect him, maybe his psychology, ahead of his rematch with a later Alvarez. And even if that's the case, even if this news is being released right now ahead of that rematch to make Sergey look bad, that still begs the question as to why we're only hearing about it 7 months later. Whereas in other instances, we hear about the fucking news as it's happening. Or at least, at minimum, days after it happens, not months. That makes it seem all the more deliberate that this was kept out of the news deliberately. We can't argue in favor of Sergey's innocence or guilt. We don't know many of the particulars, and it does seem like, well, the reason we can't do that is because that news, that information, was omitted. But I don't think something like this should fly below the radar because, well, quite honestly, any other time you hear about a boxer with any kind of a profile involved in a domestic abuse case, or a case where a chick is saying he hit me, or he did this to me, or he did that to me, in any other instance, that shit gets publicized. So why didn't this get publicized at the time that it happened? Why are we just now hearing about that? You motherfuckers gotta keep the same energy if you're gonna report the news. The same way we could sit here and bash Adrian Broner for some shit that he does, and believe me, I do that all the time. Same way we could bash him is the same way that we could bash Sergey. Motherfuckers don't be in a hurry to give Adrian Broner the benefit of the doubt, right? And I'm not telling you to. I think he's an ass clown. But at the same time, you have to wonder, are they treating Sergey differently? Like, why are we just now hearing about this? If it's anyone else, we hear about it as it happens. Why aren't we hearing it that same way when it comes to Sergey? I don't know, man. We'll see what happens with this shit, but I think the news deserves more attention because in other instances, they don't waste time giving other motherfuckers attention. I mean, even Dominic Wade's situation, a very similar situation, even that was reported in a more prompt manner than this. And Dominic Wade has almost no profile.
He's a nobody.
He's even more obscure than Sergey. So these are my thoughts. Feel free to disagree. But I can't argue in favor of Sergey Kovalev's innocence or guilt because I don't know enough about the particulars to give you an informed opinion. I don't know what happened or who it happened to or why. And until more news develops, well, that's just where it's at. But I will say that I find it quite odd that this took so long to report, whereas in other instances, didn't take long at all to find out what the fuck was going on. Kind of funny, don't you think?